Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks everyone that's joining us for a little chat with Natasha Postwook and myself, Hannah Stouffer, founder over here at H Plus. Um, Feel free to ask questions in the comments, hold them till the end. But we're just gonna kind of go ahead and dive in.
I'm so excited.
Totally. So, I mean, there's Natasha is one of our relatively new artists to the roster. There's obviously a lot that I am excited to talk to you about in terms of process and balance and, your work. I think that first and foremost, I would love to hear from you just a little bit of the definition of your name, because I think I know, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. So there's two stories that I tell when it comes to this. There's like the R-rated version and then there's the G-rated version. I'm gonna
I
give you
mean,
both.
yeah, I want both. I want
Okay.
both.
So the G-rated version is that I used to go to a lot of music festivals and then I became an adult and realized like when I was like 22, 23, I was like, this is fun, but I definitely just forwent paying my car payment to pay for this
Mm.
music festival. And like that feels a little weird and I can't like justify this anymore. Much like post rock takes influence from rock music, but it's still not rock music. Post Wook is like this idea of like taking influence from like festival culture and bringing it into more of like an adult sense. So my name
Totally.
was actually supposed to be the handle. This entire account I created as a like squatting account because I wanted to create like a lifestyle blog.
Cool.
That didn't happen clearly. I wanted it to be about like finance and like budgeting, which is so funny because like that's like the last thing from what
Totally.
I talk about. The R-rated version of that is that I am actually approaching 5 years sober, and part of the thing for me of like post-work was like I'm no longer like shoveling drugs up my nose, and like now I'm an adult and like I take care of myself, and it was like this whole way of like kind of being like, wow, like these things are not just about like me doing whatever I want to do. Like I have to connect to this whole world around me, which I had never done before. So Postbook was like this idea of like the new journey of like my life as a person
Cool.
who actually pays attention. I can't say that when I'm
Cool.
talking to like high schoolers. So like that's the part I usually leave out. But
I
yeah, that's
mean,
part of it.
yeah, I mean, as a personal practice, what's better than, personal balance and, your work kind of leaning into your own health. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
for
awesome.
sure.
And I guess, as a reminder of your name and your past and your journey, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing.
Yeah, no worries.
So I know, and I'm assuming that music is still a pretty huge part of your work and your career and your clients, and it lends itself so well to that. Um, Tell me a little bit about how I guess music influences you. I'm sure you listen to music while you work. I'm sure a lot of the clients that you work with are in that world still. Is that something that you love? Is that hard that there's kind of that friction ever?
um, I don't know if I would say that it's like friction. I think honestly, it's funny because I used to work in the music industry, and I think that
Mm.
for me, like the entertainment industry in general, it's like the song Hotel California, like you want to check out, but you can never leave. It's like you can never really get away from it. And I think that like for me, like working with musicians is really great because like, especially when we're like mutual fans, I really love that because then it's like
Totally.
I listen to their music while I work and then like they want to hire me to do something that influences their music. And I just like love that dynamic. I think that that's like really great. I think that it's cool sometimes because I view art and like the inspiration in a very visual way and they view it in an auditory way. So like when we
Mm-hmm.
can combine those two things and create something new, it's really, I think that's really cool. Um, it's cool with anything, but I like that it's like the two senses of art coming together.
Totally.
I actually
Totally.
met someone yesterday who was like a performance artist, and it got me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it'd be really cool to do something with like performance art and like combine like the vision and like the visual aspect of it with like the kinesthetic aspect. Like I was thinking about that.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, merging mediums, merging senses, having your work exist as the forefront of something you would hear or the background of something behind maybe a performance art, like the different collaboration kind of layers that you could get into, I think is super cool to explore. Um, And speaking of layers, I mean, that's kind of what your work is all about. It's, you know, I could also picture, you know, physically separating out the different, you know, planes of your work. And I want to hear a little bit more about your process, because the base of it, or the way that you approach it, is pretty collage based, pretty like, you know, analog in theory, right?
In theory, yeah.
But obviously probably done more digitally. Can you talk about just like your process and how you've come to the work that you create now, and, you know, kind of what that means to you? It's all obviously very environmental based. There's a lot of nature, a lot of travel, a lot of kind of like wanderlust, and maybe even nostalgia in there.
Yeah, actually. So it's interesting. I started making analog collages when I was like 12, and it was something that I was really interested in. And I just like would put things together and hope that it worked. And ironically, like, that's kind of more of where my process is at now than it ever has been in the past. Cool. And I think that lately I've been really like on this thing of like just putting a whole bunch of things like in one just like file, and just like A/B testing and see what works. Like, that's something I've been doing a lot, which like normally doesn't, like in the past hasn't happened. Like in the past I've been a lot more I don't want to say decisive. I've just been a lot more like stubborn. I want to use that word, because I wasn't as open to the idea of doing something different. Where I think that like I was very much like, I'm going to create exactly this, nothing else. I'm not going to try anything else. I'm just going to do this, and I'm not going to look back. Where I think that like now it's like I've kind of been able to like sit with it and let it breathe a little, and like kind of see like what works a little bit better and what doesn't. I usually start with one specific layer. That's typically the way that I work. Whether it's like, it's usually the foremost foreground layer, or it's the background. Usually it's like the top or the bottom. That's how I usually start. And then from there, I'll kind of fill everything in between, depending on the mood that I'm in, whatever else is going on, the alignment of Venus, I don't know.
Totally.
Sometimes
the moon, the stars, totally.
Whatever it is. Sometimes I'm really, really, really like, this is exactly what I'm going to do. There are other times where I'm like, I can't decide between these two options. Or there are times where I am just completely lost and I completely just like delete the file altogether. It just depends. There's a lot of things, more so lately than in the past. I've just created what I call B-sides, and they're just pieces that I make just for me, and like no one else sees them. This morning I was looking through a few. I was like, I haven't really, this is just gonna be mine, I guess. And it's cool.
Yeah, they just exist. I mean, you've built such an amazing brand of your, you know, your work that sees the light, maybe your B-sides. I know that you as an artist, you have your whole own, you know, I just picture it as like a production factory over there with your holographic prints and your notebooks and your goods. And I think that there's, you know, a lot of people that really love that aspect. But so you've built up this amazing brand, not just of, you know, your work, but as an actual entity. I want to hear maybe like any advice you would give to somebody that's just starting out as an artist, as, you know, somebody that wants to make products, or kind of like where did this all start? Obviously it started with the art, you know? Yeah. And did you know that you wanted to get into personal work or client work or products, or, you know, was there any sort of method, or was it just kind of a snowball?
Very snowball. Cool. The thing with the festival community is it's very insular. And a lot of the people who were like my early supporters, my early clients, everyone pretty much in the beginning on every aspect were people from the festival community. I would share things on Facebook and people were like, whoa! And it was like, all right, cool. And then people were like, you have to make prints. And then people were like, you have to make my album cover. And then it just like kind of snowballed from there.
Totally.
And I think that like that was not what I wanted. I was just like looking for, like I said, this was a squatting handle. So like I was just looking for a place to put some stuff that I had made. I didn't expect anything like this when I started. I still am, it's funny, like a year and a half ago, maybe like 2 years ago now. No, like 3 years ago now. Time just is so, it was like,
I don't know.
2018, summer of 2018. I remember thinking I would be like totally cool, like being like a weekend artist where I make like a few things, I make some commissions, I've got like 45,000 followers. I'd be like chill doing that. And now I'm like cutscene here and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, this is very different from what I thought this would be. But like, I love it because like the one thing I always say, and I guess this is the advice I would give, is like, you never get, or you sometimes don't get what you want. Just point blank period.
Totally.
I wanted 45,000 followers, a day job, doing this on the weekends, maybe doing a few like swap meets, like tables. That's what I wanted. What I needed apparently was what I have, this, whatever this is.
Well,
I needed this.
Just like I mean, you met the demand because your work was really good. You know what I mean? Like, people responded and you chose to keep up with that and to keep making work because, you know, because obviously maybe you liked it or enjoyed it. But I mean, that's an amazing place to be also, is that there was so much support and there was so much, you know, so many people just asking you to keep doing it so that they could be a part of that. I mean, that's a really cool place to be.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I would say too, thank you for saying that. I think the other thing I would say is like finding the why is something I've had to redefine. And if you're new to art in general, just like as an artist, because I the way I kind of view art is like there's the work and then there's the art, right? And I think like the work is like answering emails, going through my website, sourcing images, doing all the things like that. And then there's the art, which is like the play, the fun and the dance. And they're different. I know a lot of artists that are not good workers. I know a lot of workers that are not good artists. It just depends, you know? It's like finding that balance and like figuring out like who to put in your team and in your circle that'll help you with those things. But I think that like as an artist, like defining and then redefining consistently over time, like the why do you do this? For me, it was like in the beginning, it was a means of escaping a day job that I desperately hated. I was an assistant for someone who was like verbally abusive. You know, it was terrible. And then I realized that like I could do something else, and it was like I kept expanding, you know, and then people were like, I love this. And then I was like, I love the way that it feels when I bring something to life that someone wants. That's
totally. And just it was that positive reinforcement for sure.
Yeah. And it keeps building. And now where I'm at right now is like, I don't really care about positive reinforcement. That's what I've realized. I don't really care about Instagram engagement. I don't really care about, you know, like tweets and retweets. I don't care. I've hit a point where I'm like, I wish I cared the way that I did. I just like don't care anymore. Like I want to keep delivering like consistently good work and keep evolving as an artist, but I'm not making things because I want it to get like 15,000 likes. I'm making things because I think it's cool. And like it's changed, and the why is so different now than it used to be. The why is no longer like I need this validation so you guys like me. It's like I like doing this and I don't really care if you do or don't. I mean, for like personal work, I'm like, this is what I want to do. And then people, then it changes again, because then the why is someone hires me and they're like, I love this thing that you did. And I'm like, cool.
But the basis that you have, the base of why you're making work is authentic. You know, your reasoning is obviously for your own, you know, self-satisfaction and self-enjoyment. And that's important for anyone that's listening, is not to try and make work that makes other people happy or to, you know, get the likes or get, you know, and it's really hard to get caught up in that now, but especially as your own personal practice, you know what I mean? Everyone should do it for their own obvious personal reasons, whether they're, you know, deeper or escapism or, you know, trying to get into another career or, you know, I mean, I used to make art, or I still make art, like literally for therapy, like as meditation. And that is super important, rather than trying to make something to get, you know, 100 likes or whatever. But you touched on something that I think is super important, and that's just finding the balance, and the balance of work and the balance of life. And I want to hear a little bit more about how you kind of manage that balance, and how you know, how do you, you know, go through your day to day and find that balance?
My Google Calendar looks like a circus. I calendar everything in my life. I calendar when I go to the gym. I calendar, you know, like my boyfriend has his own color in my calendar, like Perfect. Everything, personal life.
Because we're visual people.
Yes. Yeah, like personal life, professional life, all gets calendared in the same calendar, because it's really important for me to see what my day looks like. And so I don't overbook myself. I mean, okay, so if you're listening, Hannah and I both live in Los Angeles. If you know anything about Los Angeles, California, there's really awful traffic, and you have to learn how to space your days out very consistently. Totally. So a big thing I do is I make sure that like I have enough time to do everything I need to do in a day. And like obviously that was easier during the pandemic because I wasn't leaving my apartment, and it was just like calls and things on Zoom and whatever else. But now it's like I have to put travel time back in, which is really exciting, you know? So that's like a big way. I calendar everything to make sure that like the colors, because it's such a visual thing. It's like most of my work stuff is like blues and like cool colors, and most of my like personal life stuff is like warm colors. So I need to make sure there's enough.
That's cool.
Yeah, I need to make sure there's enough balance of warm and cool colors on my calendar.
Totally.
Because if it's too warm, then like I'm spending probably too much time like not working. That never happens. If it's too cool, it's usually that I'm spending way too much time working.
When do you give yourself only warm colors? Do you do weekends? Do you do nights? Are you good with that?
Both. Yeah. Also, it's interesting because like I think for a lot of people, and I had to go through this when I went like full time as an artist, is like I was so used to working like 10 to 6, 9 to 5, whatever. It's like 8 hours uninterrupted time. As an artist, I don't have to do that. Like I woke up at 7:30 this morning. I answered some emails. I got on my computer at 8, and then I like went to my friend's house at 9:30. You know, then I got back at like 10:15. You know, and it's just like then I kept working, and then I made dinner, and I just made lunch. You know, it's like I
love that. I love making our own schedule. The benefits of freelance, the benefits of being able to do that as long as you have that balance. I mean, that's so clutch. That's so cool.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, the things I do that are really important though, that I would recommend to anyone is hard in and out times are really important to me. Like I have a thing where like they're forgiving. For me, it's like I need to be at my desk by noon. That's just like a thing. And then like
it's a good start time. Noon schedule.
Because like I do things before noon, but it's like be at my desk and actually like doing things on my computer by noon. And then I have a hard out time of like no working past 9 p.m. My like email locks, Instagram goes dark. It's like I'm not supposed to be online because that's the time I need to be like putting time back into myself.
Totally.
And then I have like a hard like D&D on my phone altogether at 11 p.m. So it's like if you need to contact me after 11 p.m., it's going to wait until the morning because if you need a response right away past 11 p.m., the answer is no.
No.
So that's what I do. That's really important to me. I work really well under stress. I mentioned I used to be an assistant. I was an assistant for 3 different people. And they were very different industries, very different humans. I learned really quickly how to have a packed schedule. And I think that helps me stay busy because I love the pressure cooker. I love being busy.
Totally.
So for me, that's really what I do.
What are some of your other warm activities? Like how do you spend your days when you're not working? And for you, working means being in front of the computer and either researching or sourcing images, or do you travel for inspiration? Are you outside a lot? I'm assuming that you are. I mean, just by the nature of your work.
I really love this idea of like warm time because that's like really a good way to put it. So for me, I'm actually currently redefining what working means because I think that posting a picture of my dinner on my Instagram story is not working. That is in fact working. And like I'm redefining what that looks like. So for me, like the true like phone off away activities, I really like going on hikes, as to be expected. I love going hiking.
Love.
I love spending time at the beach. That is a thing that I love to do. In Los Angeles, I can do both of these things. I can go up into the mountains, I can go hiking, it's amazing. I like to go to the desert. I like to spend time with my friends and the people who mean a lot to me because that's really important to me. I will read. I take a lot of baths. I have a very nice bathtub that I spend a lot of time in.
Perfect. So do I, actually.
Yeah, it's essential. I would say if you're an artist, get a bathtub. That's typically the stuff that I need to do. It like depends because like I'll go through like a rotating thing of like self-care, if you will, of like spending time watching Netflix, journaling, taking a bath, just doing like different things at home. I love being around people, but I think I've learned the older I've gotten and the more like self-work I've done, I've realized that like being recharged around people for me looks a lot like an energizing one-on-one conversation.
Totally.
Me being around a whole bunch of people in a group and feeling energized in the past was me like people pleasing, and like I don't need to feel that way anymore. So I typically spend a lot of my recharge time alone or with like 1 or 2 other people. Yeah. So yeah, it's just like chilling out, hanging.
Super similar, to be honest. Yeah,
love
super
that.
Similar. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about your brand project, the prints that you do, because I know you have so much amazing work to offer that's just an extension of yourself and everything that we've talked about. I think that your warm and your cool times kind of lend itself nicely to each other. And maybe for a lot of people, just the nature of your work is a great reminder, you know, to spend time outdoors and spend time, you know, on off time and warm time. So you do these holographic print releases, which I love.
Thank you.
And I think there's some phone ringing, sorry. So are these weekly, monthly? How do you choose what prints to do? You know, maybe give people insight if they haven't purchased one or kind of been in the know about this before.
Yeah, I actually think I'm gonna do like an IGTV pretty soon of just like,
Cool.
Hey everyone, like this is how my prints work, because a lot of you are
They're
new.
so
and asking
beautiful.
questions.
Totally.
Yeah, so the holographics come out on the third Friday of every month.
Okay.
Once a month. To me, it's streamlined because I've been doing this for years. So they come out on the third. It's usually, what I do is it's usually the third Friday. It's whatever the 15th is. I look at the 15th on the calendar and I'm like, okay, that Friday, which ends up usually being the third. And then there's a limited number of them. So the way that I structure all of my prints is actually like me paying homage to the festival community. There's a big thing in the festival world where people sell limited edition pins. So my whole idea behind like making everything limited edition was like kind of taking a spin on that and making things limited edition in the sense of like art itself. Because my work doesn't really lend well to like enamel pins, which is fine. But it's like, so the idea behind the holographic prints is like they're a limited number. They're not a limited time, it's a number. So it's like there's only a certain finite amount that you can purchase and then they're gone. And then they come back the next month. I pick them, well, it used to be, because I used to do a different holographic paper, but now it's like, since they're rainbow, it's fun because the white parts become the rainbow and then the black parts are like still like, or the color parts are still color, where in the past it was like the black was what was holographic. So I try to find pieces that have like, I would say less than a quarter of white space in them. And that usually works out really well. Stars are really cool because they like are speckly and they look really cool. So usually it's just something that like I think would look good with holographic. I haven't actually picked next month's yet. So if you guys have any suggestions, I would take them. I knew what I wanted to do for June, like in May, but it just depends. I usually look at them. Sometimes I keep like a running list of things I think would be a good idea, and then I like go back to them later. But typically it's typically just like a darker piece with some white in it that I think would look good. And then I proof everything. This is the not fun part. If you are not a printer, this is probably not exciting, but anything you see, if it's on like a graphic on a t-shirt or something like what I'm doing with the holographics, it has to be proofed. So I have to take away the white, and then I usually put in like a filler color. It's usually like a really fluorescent green. And then I can look at it and see like, okay, all this green is going to be what's holographic. And I'm like, cool, that'll look really good. Or that's way too much. That'll be like intense, you know, or that's not enough. So it's like, I'll do that with a few different pieces and figure out like what works. So, yeah.
Well, I love, you know, you see so much of your work and a lot of the work that we do just online. And, you know, it's always exciting for me to have tangible stuff and work in real life and gallery stuff. And, you know, I just love the kind of tangible aspect, and especially your work lends itself so well to that. As a whole, do you think your work has kind of like shifted or gone through changes like thematically over the last 5 or 10 years? Has it gotten more dreamy or more psychedelic or more open, or are there any themes that you kind of like see it navigating through or closer towards? Yeah, so it used to be a lot what I would consider choppier. I didn't care as much about color theory. I didn't know as much about color. I'm not going to say I didn't care. I was ignorant to it. I did not understand color theory. I was not trying to make things look cohesive and themed. I was just putting things together because that's what I knew how to do. Also, a lot of my early work included people. I really don't like people in every sense. I love you individually, but as a group, in traffic, in a crowd, the collective. Totally. You know, like a person is different than people. That's how I view it. A collective group of a lot of people that like I am just dealing with. I'm not like, you know, trying to talk to. It's just like a group of like walking. I remember like before the pandemic, I was in Midtown Manhattan and I was like trying to walk on the sidewalk and I was like, this is hell. This is literally hell. And like, it's like that to me is like, so like the idea behind my art and the reason that I do it the way that I do is like, you are supposed to be the person.
You're in the piece. That's the point.
Totally.
You're the person in the piece. Why aren't there people in your pieces? There are. It's you. You're supposed to be looking at it. So like the whole idea is like you are in this dream world and you are looking at this thing. I don't know about anyone else. A lot of my dreams don't involve like random people walking around that I can see their faces, because I think there's like some psychological thing where we can't see faces. So that's why my work doesn't really include people, because it's supposed to be like your dreams.
That's cool. And it also gives it that, like, even for like when I think of escapism or when I think of like vacation, I think of like deserted mountains and desert islands. I don't think of like being in Manhattan personally. You know, I think, you know, when I want to look at something and kind of fantasize or, you know, have that feeling, I think that I would want it to be all kind of environmental. So that's funny. That's totally right.
Yeah, that's like the thing. I mean, that's what it's always been for me. And I think, so I moved away from people. I used to make things that were a little bit more psychedelic, and it's not that I like dislike doing that. It's just that right now it just doesn't feel like what I want to be doing as much. I think that like it's just gone through some phases in that sense of just like what I really like want to be making and what I don't. I'm a lot more interested in like making things that look like you're on another planet right now. So I guess it's like changed from psychedelic to otherworldly.
Oh yeah, totally. Cool.
In a sense. And I feel like now I'm a lot more interested in the detail and the just like complexity of it instead of just like banging out an idea. I was looking through some of my old work a few days ago, and it was like there were pieces in there I was like, I forgot I even made this, and I don't really like that. I kind of want to like remember the pieces I make. I don't want there to just be things that happened, you know.
Totally.
So when I spend more time on them and I like really like let them breathe their own life, it creates something really different than I think like just, oh, I'm just making this, because again, I'm not making things just for content. This isn't content. Yeah. And I think that is the thing now, is like I'm just more interested in just like creating something that means something either to me or the piece, like kind of sometimes like pieces like jump out. I'm weird. I think like plants like scream at us. I have like this whole thing that like the world is like a lot more animated than we think it is.
I mean, it's more alive than I think we take credit for. Yeah, or give it credit for.
I like to think of like the pieces I make as being alive too. So yeah.
Totally. I mean, in terms of just like your self goals or process or where you want to take your work, and I know you've done a little bit in the past, but like, you know, bigger, large scale, immersive. I know we've talked a little bit about, you know, taking your pieces into motion or adding, you know, movement elements to them. Where do you see your work going? Is there any like mediums or scale or, you know, things or places that you want to kind of have your work live in or inhabit?
Yes. I really want to see everything kind of move on a larger scale. I would love to be, it's like a few different things. I mean, like, it'd be really cool to be like on like, you know, I mean, I don't even, it's still there. Like the Strip in Vegas with like the LED like ceiling, like that would, like that scale of like, it's up there, it's there. There's some buildings where I live in Los Angeles that have like massive scaling billboards. That would be like really amazing.
Totally.
I think that, you know, doing something like that, like in an airport mural. I don't know why, that's just something that I really would love to do.
Well, the scale is huge and the content of your work is larger than life because, well, it is, I guess, life scale, or I mean, it's mountains and it's, you know, it's the scale of it is, you know, if it was the size that it exists, it would be massive, but it can be.
Yeah. So I think that's like kind of the idea there, is like creating something where it's like, is this a window? What's going on?
Cool. Light box stuff. Yeah, like transparent, big.
And then when we get into the immersive side of things, it would be really ideal to like create like, I was talking to someone about this recently, of just like creating like a real like environment. So it's not even just like, oh cool, like you're in this place and you're looking at this thing and it's like it feels like you're in like another world, but like you go into one room and it's warm and you go into another and it is cold. like I think that would be really, really, really cool.
Totally.
The other thing is obviously in the more like immediate sense, like I want to start, you know, like really bringing these things to life in the way that I see them. I'm nervous about that just because it's, to me, it's like creating a book or movie out of a book, right? Like when I read Game of Thrones, I had this whole idea of what Sansa looked like, and then they came out with a TV show and I was like, this isn't what she's supposed to look like, right? And like that's what I'm afraid is going to happen if I start animating my stuff. But at the end of the day, if George R.R. Martin was the one who directed Game of Thrones, people probably wouldn't be like, this isn't what Sansa was supposed to look like, because it's what he thought she was supposed to look like.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So like that's kind of what I'm trying to like think of with like more motion stuff that's coming as soon as I can figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Soon. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think now's a good time to maybe open it up to some Q&A. I see some really interesting comments going on down below.
Always.
So we're here with Natasha PostWOok. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask her about life, work, art, balance, personal stuff, feel free to drop a note down in the comments, and we can just kind of keep the conversation going from there. There's some really interesting religious talk going on my end. Do you have do you have any basis of Aztec, Egyptian, Hindu, Buddhist thoughts that play a role in your work, or is it all more worldly, organic by nature?
Until
not to get too much into like religion or worldly views, but
I don't mind. For me, like, I mean, I am very spiritual. Until recently, like, I didn't really have a lot of experience or contact with like, what's the word? Organized religion. That wasn't like a thing that was like I went to like Catholic school growing up, but until recently, like I hadn't really like been friends with anyone who was like a part of like organized religion. And I see that like the way that I kind of view it is like being a spiritual person, I view the world as like there is something bigger than us. I'm not necessarily like confident enough as one human and like a bone sack to like define that. You know, I think that it looks different for everyone. So I think that for me, like the way that I kind of interpret things is like there's like a guiding hand in the world doing something. But I'm not gonna like sit here and like define that just because it's like, who am I to do that? Like I'm a human. Totally. But I think that for me, like the inspiration isn't necessarily from like a specific organized place. It's more about like the way that I think and feel about the world. So it is really spiritual in nature, but it's not necessarily like this came from this specific like chapter of the Bible. It's not like that. It's like I went on a hike once and I felt really like inspired and like empowered, and like this is what came out of it, you know? So it's like it's based in my own experience and my own understandings a little bit more. Totally. Yeah. So
speaking of the Bible, do you ever this is a total derail.
I love this. What's about that?
Do you and speaking of otherworldly, do you ever throw any like otherworldly alien UFO content into your work?
Okay, we're about to get into one of my soapboxes. I'll keep this very brief.
Or Loch Ness, but I prefer alien UFO.
I will keep this very brief. I used to work in politics. I am third generation in federal government. My entire life, when I talk to people whose parents are not bureaucrats, are like, are there really aliens? Do they exist?
Oh, yeah.
What are the things? So for me, my entire life is like UFOs, whoever killed John F. Kennedy, and anything related to aliens are all chalked up in my head as conspiracy theories. They hold the same weight as the Zodiac Killer. They are the kind of things that like, my dad works for NASA. The way that I see aliens is they exist. They're bacteria and they live on Mars. Congrats, guys. Like, they're bacteria. I think it's very humanly of us to assume that they are green, because most of our skin is going to be like a reddish color. So like we interpret them as the opposite of us. It's a very human it's a very human way of interpreting what we are not. And I think that it's just like completely chalked up BS, to be honest.
Interesting.
I think that if there are UFOs, and the Loch Ness Monster thing, someone debunked it. It was just like a whale trying to mate. That's literally, you could look it up. Like, that's literally what it was. And I think that like, when I think of people making art of these things, and like, I'm sure people do, I'm like, this just feels like feeding conspiracy theories. And like, maybe that's not how they see it, and that's totally fine. But based on where I come from and the world that I grew up in and the experiences I've had, I'm not going to contribute to that because that's how I feel. However, there are pictures of UFOs all over the place in people's art. I've seen them, and that's fine. You know, like the flying saucer, like there's a whole brand of things that exist. I mean, especially in like the music industry, like if you say you're an alien, talk about UFOs and like flying saucers, like, and you make dubstep, like you're going to be successful. It's low hanging fruit. Unfortunately, but that's like funny. It's the same with like a singer songwriter talking about like her emotional trouble. It's like it sells. So like, who am I to say that people shouldn't do that? It's just, for me personally, it's not something that like I want to like bring into my work, just because like this is so personal to me, in the sense that like I'm not creating like a like spreadsheet for a client that's going to get formatted into like 4 different things to go to a meeting. And like, it's just like work that I'm producing in that sense. It's like everything that I make, people know that it's mine. And I think that I need to kind of be really conscious of what I'm creating and what I'm putting into the world. If it's not something that I agree with, I'm not going to do it, again, because it's just generating likes, and that's not what I'm here to do.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because I mean, everyone's perception of that kind of stuff is totally based on their experience, and you know, you've had experience with it, and that's, you know, where your work comes from, or, you know, strays from, and that's also really interesting. Do you prefer full moons or sunsets?
I hate that question. Oh my God, I've never been asked that before. I've never been asked that before. I don't know. Oh, I like both.
That's a big one. It's a hard one.
The moon means so much to me, but the sun does too. I don't know.
It's big. It's everything.
You just derailed me. I have no idea. You just broke my brain.
It's kind of both of everything. No, you don't have to answer. That can just be a personal question.
I feel like
the process.
I think full moons, because they stay out longer. Sunsets are pretty fleeting.
Sunsets are fleeting.
I love watching the moon rise on the horizon throughout the night. I like absolutely love that. To me, that's like, I did that last night. I like went out and it was like
totally
low in the sky, and then by midnight it was like really high in the. I love that. And then like, if I used to, when I was a kid, I was a swimmer, and I had to get up at like 4 a.m. and the moon at 4 a.m. is huge in the sky.
At least you have that moon at 4 a.m. Totally.
So yeah, probably the moon. I think
That's good. I mean, I think I love both, but I think I like the duration of the full moon more. We have a little bit of a technical question. Which app do you use? I mean, software, I guess, with your work, with your collages, graphics. Would you want to share a little bit about just like technical process?
Sure. Yeah. It's not an app. It's well, I guess it's an application. If you pull it up on your computer, it's called Photoshop. It's the best. I think Adobe
the best out there.
Looks great. Yeah.
Totally.
I think the things, I'll just answer a little bonus question that I'm sure people who know that I use Photoshop have been wondering. Most of my work comes from a lot of layer masks, magic wand erasers, filters, and content aware fills. That doesn't scare me to tell you, because I've been putting it together for so long that I know what I'm doing. Totally. But a lot of like layer masks. That's really like the answer to that.
Totally.
So
cool.
Comes together.
And everyone kind of does it in their own way. It's funny. I've learned, you know, with the software and the Creative Suite, no matter if you know how to do something similar to someone else, everyone always has their different path to get there. You know what I mean? And if I open up somebody's file with a bunch of layers, like I kind of have no idea what to do with it, just because they built it out differently. And I'm sure that's how your work would look to anyone else. It's just like, you've been doing it for so long that you've just kind of built out your method and your structure. And totally.
There's
love the
very
suite,
different ways to like do things. And that's also the thing I love, because like I didn't go to school for this. So I didn't learn, like I learned embarrassingly late how to change a canvas size on Photoshop. I'll just say that I did the basic little things. Like I didn't know, like, it's like, I didn't realize like there's a whole image tab that helps. Like it took me way too long to figure that out. Right. Like, because I didn't go to school for this. I didn't take like the mundane, like basics of Photoshop class, you know? So it's like, I learned all that later, which is funny, but like, it's interesting because I learned how to do things that maybe like I would teach students how to do stuff, like especially during the pandemic. That was like a big thing. Like people had me come in and guest lecture. Those kids probably knew how to change canvas sizes, but they didn't know what I was doing, right? And that's like the other thing is like there's no like right or wrong way to kind of figure things out. Yeah, so just like
self-taught, learning as you go. I mean, learning at the methods that feel most comfortable. I think that that's huge too. You know, just kind of like navigating what works for you. I mean, that's kind of how I learned, is just figuring out what feels best, and then figuring out how to navigate what do I want to achieve. But there is something to be said for learning the right way, but I like learning by trial and error, I guess. I'm one of those.
I think that's the best.
So what do you have coming up to look forward to? I know that we have some exciting projects that we've been working on. I know that we have some exciting exhibition, digital and in real life things that we have coming up. Anything you want to share? Anything fun upcoming, drops, releases? I mean NFTs. Shows.
Can I share?
Here's the plugs.
Okay. Actually, after I finish this, one of the things I have to do is finalize everything for you for crypto.com, which is really exciting. So that's going to be, if you guys are looking for animated things of my work, this is going to be the first opportunity to get something like that. This is something I put together with some dear friends of mine, and it's really awesome. I'm really excited. I love the one that we ended up going with, because to me it was
so
the first.
Excited about them.
It was the first one we made, and
cool.
It actually meant, I mean, this is what I'm going to type out, but like it meant a lot to me, just because like the whole idea behind this was like we were really looking at like how, why, when, what, like the cycles of like being an artist look like. And that's kind of what like that was all about for us. Was just like, it was like you enter new phases and stuff, and it's like you'll see why that makes sense when you guys see it.
Big. So Natasha's work will be animated for maybe the first time, seen live, accessible, purchasable, and I'm super excited for that. It's beautiful work, and I can say that I've seen the sneak preview, so that's fun to look forward to.
It's crazy to think that like, this is going to be like the very first time that it's ever going to be seen as an animated thing. And that's part of the reason cool. I think that the timing of everything works out the way it's always supposed to, always in every sense, because like, I think that kind of putting it out in this way first, and like having the ability to authenticate it in this way is really special to me, because it like gives people who have been long-term collectors like an opportunity to have like a once in a lifetime, once only ever thing, in the sense that like there's never going to be another first, so this is the first time you're ever going to get it, and if you want it you should have it. Then we're doing another NFT drop with a new platform. How much am I allowed to plug? I'm like, no.
I mean, Doing Good is actually, their social media is live. They're still building, but we have a couple partnerships coming up that Natasha is also working on with us, H Plus, to do really amazing variations of her work, which will be animated in motion. They'll be available. We're obviously always developing new relationships over here on our end that we're so grateful to be able to pull in artists like Natasha PostWook to partner with us on, and those I think will both be happening in July. So those are just, stay tuned, look forward to. Hey Andrew, hey everyone down there that's joining and showing love. In terms of licensing, someone's asking about using your graphics. Feel free to reach out to me. We do offer some licensing. Natasha does have some things available, some things aren't. So, bigger picture work stuff, feel free to reach out. Natasha, is there anything else that you wanted to plug or to talk about, or to, advice, props?
Well, I think, I think like the one thing that, I'm going to do, just because I think this really like reminded me, is like, I will be doing an IGTV video of like, hey, this is how my drops work. Just because I think some people are like, what is this? What's going on?
I mean, you've been doing them for so long. I think they're gorgeous. And I know that there's obviously a desire for them, because that's kind of what brought you here.
I think that's like the thing that really, it's interesting, because I think too, like I was saying this earlier, it's like there's no playbook for what like post-pandemic looks like, right? And I think that like it's interesting, because for me, the demand for people that maybe like aren't going to be locked inside anymore. You know, like, let's keep
Totally.
moving, let's keep doing stuff. Like, that'll be really cool. So
Totally.
I think that, you know, like, that's a big thing too, and just kind of like consistently like paying attention, listening to, and responding to what people are looking for in a way that like isn't morally compromising, which is pretty easy. I feel like it's
Totally.
really easy to be good in this world. But I think that that's like really important to me. So there's that. Trying to think of what else. I mean, I just released some notebooks, like,
I saw those. I love
recently.
those.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that's a great post-pandemic activity. Get writing, get drawing, get outside, bring your notebook from PostWook.
yes, exactly.
That's
So
a good look.
I even used one of my own notebooks for my own journaling, which I didn't want to do. I was like, no, this is combining too much like work life and personal life. But then I was like, I need a notebook, so whatever.
I
This
love
has
them.
been mine anyway. So
I love
yeah,
them.
so I used that. Yeah, so I just did a notebook pre-order. I'll have more stuff coming at the end of the month. Every month I do more like monthly prints, so that'll be fun. More holographics in a few weeks. And then
Cool.
yeah, so
I got one question in the DMs. Do you ever do analog collages, or, you know, something for personal keepsakes for someone, or do you keep them digital? Do you ever do personal commissions where you do things analog?
I think those are two different answers. So I do personal commissions for people.
Cool.
But not usually analog. I have a ton of magazines that I've scanned everything in, and I've put it into my hard drive, cloud, etc. Because
Cool.
that's the way that I create things now, because I want to be able to color balance everything and make it look really cohesive, because that's a big part of what I do now. And I can't do that if it's on paper with glue.
Totally.
So I upload everything, and this is actually not uncommon. There's a lot of artists that do it this way. If you see like that, like kind of screen printy, but it looks still digital, it's because
It's like
they're scanning
halftone.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
they're scanning things, and that's okay.
Totally.
Like, I scan stuff, and I think the scans are fun because you get things that you otherwise wouldn't have. Like, I have all these like cool images of like mountain ranges, and like I have this one of like birds that I really want to use soon, and it's just like it kind of creates like a new element to things. So that's typically what it is, and then I can get literally anything printed, so it's easier than having something that's like completely analog, just because sizing can get kind of weird with that too. And like it's
Totally.
hard
Oh,
it's hard.
yeah.
There's like a lot of logistics with having things on paper and glue. It's just like so much easier, and so much like the quality is better, the paper is better, the art will look better if it's digitally done. It's
Totally.
the same with like it's the same with a lot of things now, right? Like, film looks cool, but a lot of film that you see is still digitally developed, like in photography.
Totally.
So it's like digital has kind of created its own path, and I think that that's like kind of helpful. And I don't think there's anything wrong with analog, but like I do things in a more digital way, because like I want the highest quality that I can deliver to someone.
I mean, the advancements of technology and quality just kind of go hand in hand, and that's what it is, you know. There's something to be said for, you know, the tangible stuff, but obviously you're doing what you do the right way, and to look the best, and yeah. I'm going to leave this copyright issue to the side. If you want to reach out to PostWook to talk copy or legal stuff, that's something that you can do maybe separately. But I'm going to close this out. We've been here for almost an hour, and I'm sure you have your day to get back to, as do I. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining in. Thank you, Natasha, for chatting with me. And if you don't already follow PostWook, give her a follow. Check out her work. Check out her holographic drops, notebooks. Stay tuned for our animations of PostWook's work that we'll be releasing for the first time ever in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
And just stay tuned. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining in. And I'm going to keep this up. This is going to exist on our IG Live, on Instagram, and on the feed. So if you want to rewatch, share, feel free. Thank you again, Natasha. So lovely to see you again, and catch you at the beach soon, I hope.
Oh, that'd be cool. We go surfing.
Cool.
That'd be fun.
I know. I would love that. I would love that so much.
Amazing. All right, well, I'm going to hop out of here. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you soon.